Hey folks, it's Johnny Flynn. We have an important call to make about the oyster beds in Norwalk, and you should listen up because Senator Cohen is getting her information about the lobster business from Bob Duff. And I'm calling her office right now.
Good morning, Lobster.
Hey, is this Senator Cohen's office?
This is her press aide. Are you looking
Oh,
for
can I chat with you for a moment? I mean, I don't need her. I'm Johnny Flynn. I live in Norwalk. And I'm reading an article that mentions her, and, the fact remains, these lobster boats, they're going out in Norwalk Harbor, and it's directly above the dredging material of 600 municipalities and boat clubs. In other words, if you dredge in Westchester County, Mamaroneck, or Larchmont, they bring the material to Norwalk and they dump it right where this lobster boat is. So the fact that it's $18.99 a pound now at Stu Leonard's, every restaurant's taking lobster off the menu because a simple lobster roll with 1 pound lobster would cost over $40 at a restaurant. So I'm wondering why, if they're on the border of Connecticut and New York, they're not mentioning that Chuck Schumer is ferociously pissed off at Connecticut for dumping arsenic, chromium, lead. If you look, you know who Norm Bloom is? He's in the article. He's the old-time oyster guy from Norwalk, who's mentioned in the article, who's pretty cool. And his Penny is fantastic, his daughter. I don't really know him very well. I've only met him a few times. But what's shocking, absolutely shocking, okay, is that Duff knows that Ryan Park, okay, which is at the corner, right where Bloom parks his boat, is Ryan Park. It had 642 parts per million PCBs. 642. That's a world record for PCBs. There's PCBs in that river, according to the aquifer company that tests it. There's PCBs at the Walk Bridge. There's PCBs at Veterans Park. There's PCBs at Oyster Shell Park. There's PCBs all over the place. VOCs, contaminants, going down the river from even King Industries, which has a permit to dump chemicals in the Norwalk River. Why, I don't know. Why does the hospital have a permit to dump chemicals in the Norwalk River? Okay, you guys have an article here basically hiding the fact that those oysters have PCBs, and if you get to the facts, when I went to the Norwalk meetings, my name is Johnny Flynn, Hearst published an article that I was happy about the great cleanup job that they did at Ryan Park. They screwed the pooch on that thing. That not an ounce of dirt went to Pennsylvania or Massachusetts, as I was told. And they told me in those meetings that Norm Bloom, the guy mentioned in this article, did the tests of the water pumped through the septic into the city septic. Do you understand? In other words, at Ryan Park, it was flooding. They piled the dirt that was contaminated against the buildings. The pregnant women were climbing over the piles of dirt, carrying kids and groceries, tracking the mud in to their apartments, which had a gas leak, VOCs, rats, human fecal matter in the basement, mold. I could go on and on about the problems at Ryan Park, which has now become Washington Village. In other words, Washington Village is a Himes project, a $30 million. They tore 18 buildings down, and they're rebuilding apartments there right now. They were pumping all that contaminated water directly into the sewer main, and I videotaped it, okay? Do you understand that what's happening here is criminal? That soil did not go to Pennsylvania or Massachusetts. I went through the receipts. It's a lie. And by the way, if it's 175,000 tons, How much would that cost to truck it to the state of Indiana? Let me ask you. If it's 1,800 miles and $3 a mile, and it's 40,000 trucks, guess how much money that would be?
No idea.
$25 million. How'd they do the project for $2 million? They sold it to unsuspecting topsoil places, including Bridgeport. And they, in turn, gave it to the city of Fairfield, which closed 23 parks due to contamination that they can't explain where it came from. I've explained it to everyone involved, including the DEEP, including the EPA, the Coast Guard. I've explained it to everyone. And the fact that these articles are written to give a false narrative and security to the industries, there's no signage at these places where people fish. There's no signage where people clam. Do you understand? They sell a license. They tell you, go to this place and clam, and they neglect to tell you that it's got more VOCs eating one contaminated clam, which is a mollusk that absorbs the pollution as it's coming down the river. Those plastic particles from styrofoam and plastic bags break down to microscopic plastic particles. They collect inside the clams, and the PCBs are attracted like magnets, do you understand? I can explain this to anybody you want to hear. We've been collecting data for like 4 years, and people are dropping dead from cancer from it.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would contact the Hearst.
I'm not calling, Hearst prints false articles. They printed an article that I congratulated them on how well a job they did at Ryan Park. That's an out and out lie. I'm counting the dead bodies, okay? That's what I'm doing. I filed a lawsuit for stone crushing in Norwalk 6 times. They haven't assigned a judge yet. Can you believe that? I filed it 2.5 years ago. I've refiled it 5 times. You need to get the senator, okay, to correct her statements and Bob Duff's BS immediately, because Lucy died because of Washington Village. Washington Village was torn down with Lucy in the building. They took the asbestos out with Lucy in the building. Lucy weighed 500 pounds, and the HUD was supposed to remove her from Washington Village first. That's the HUD guideline. High-risk people, when buildings are being torn down and renovation projects are underway and the money's in place, they need to take the high-risk people out first. Mary had COPD. She was removed second to last. Okay? I can name names. I can name 20 names. The last people to be removed from Washington Village were supposed to be the first. And they died, folks. And you're writing articles covering up the fact that, now listen to this. I was told at the Norwalk meetings by Eloisa Melendez that Bloom did the water tests at Washington Village and Ryan Park. Guess what? He has a conflict of interest selling the oysters, knowing that the water test was not done by him. I have the water test. They lied. It shows fecal matter in it. Human fecal matter. Rat fecal matter. What I'm saying is, which you don't realize, is the fecal matter readings are 5 times the legal limit. Did you know that?
No, so what I would do is...
I'm not doing anything. I'm telling you, you tell them, because they're suppressing me, okay? They won't let me go to the media, A. It's murder. That's what it is. And when everybody promotes a false narrative about contamination, And Norwalk itself claims there's we have conservation meetings, we have conservation on our mind. We paid $200,000 for a conservation study. I'm complaining about heavy metals, okay? I'm complaining about silica, okay? Arsenic, chromium. Do you know what chromium does to clams?
No.
Okay. Chromium is kryptonite to humans. And that area that you're writing about is in a flood zone with 80 contaminated piles of crushed cement. The rain washes the heavy metals down the sewer main directly to the dredging dump where Chuck Schumer is complaining that Connecticut senators, who may as well be Cohen, if she's on the environmental committee, is she?
Yeah.
She doesn't know anything. Are you joking me? Putting this out is giving the green light. By the way, the Oyster Festival is this weekend in Norwalk. Can you meet me there?
No.
Okay, why isn't there any signage that the contaminants are in the river, in the estuary? And by the way, there are studies about the Lyme's disease and the tick sprays in the estuaries killing the lobster larvae. So we have no more industry. As you know, they're walking down from Maine to Connecticut. They're not born here. They can't survive in the estuary. Okay? It's too toxic. So exactly why are you guys promoting, okay, death?
Again, I would say it sounds like your fight is with Hearst newspapers. So I would submit a letter to the editor or an op-ed stating your position.
Hi, Hearst.
I've also.
By the way, Hearst
To the legislative aid.
Hearst published falsified murder evidence on a kid that was tasered to death 18 months ago. I gave him the original videos. A kid was killed at 1:30 in the morning by taser. Hearst published video created 4 hours after the murder by 21 cops. 6 cops killed him at 1:30. 21 cops are in the body cam evidence 4 hours later, staged with an actor. You want me to go to Hearst and ask Hearst to publish corrected information about the worst murder in Connecticut history? They won't do it, okay? Mike Pignataro won't do it. Dan Haar is cycling across Connecticut right now with Jim Himes. He's not going to write an article that specifically states that Hearst is got a false narrative about the oyster industry. Are you joking me? This is on you. You guys published an article. You relied on Bob Duff, which is the biggest mistake you could ever make. The guy knows nothing about environmental anything. Okay? He's a realtor. You think he cares whether he's on a boat promoting the lobster industry when in fact he has knowledge that there should be signage that you shouldn't be fishing in Norwalk Harbor? You certainly shouldn't be clamming there because under the walk bridge are buried cells with carcinogens. They loaded truck bodies and they buried it. It's underneath the walk bridge, which is right there between exit 15 and exit 16 on I-95. They're going to pile drive into that mud and unleash Armageddon. Do you realize that when Veterans Park was dug up at the boat ramp, the soil was so contaminated that no state would take it, okay? So they put it back in the river. Are you aware of that? That's right exactly where you're talking about. There are studies that the soil removed from Veterans Park was so contaminated that nobody would take it. So the state decided to put the contaminated soil back in the river. All that was unleashed upon the Norwalk oyster beds. The lobsters are down in the crevices of the Long Island Sound, and the contaminants flow downward to the bottom. Then they're swept up by the currents and circulated down to New York City, and Chuck Schumer is pissed at Jim Himes, Blumenthal, Murphy, Bob Duff, and obviously Senator Cohen that Connecticut is ruining New York's harbors through dredging, which is not mentioned in your article at all.
Okay. Well, I've made some notes for the senator and her.
Can you have her call me? I'd love to talk to her.
What's your name? I have your name, Johnny Flynn. And what's your number there?
203-561-0840. I'll be waiting her call.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Flynn.
Excellent. Have a great day. Wow. The senator might call. He's the press secretary for Senator Cohen, who's the environmentalist in the General Assembly of the state of Connecticut.